Hey everyone, welcome back and welcome if you're new to Crafted by Lucas. My name is Lainey. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to create a stencil with your Cricut machine for a really simple wood burning project. Be sure to watch the video all the way through because I will continue to share tips and tricks along the way. Please give this video a thumbs up as it really helps my channel. Subscribe and share, and let's go ahead and get started. All right guys, so before we start designing in Cricut Design Space, I wanted to go over some of the supplies that I'm using. I am using Oracle 651 permanent adhesive vinyl instead of stencil vinyl. I've got my Cricut Joy Xtra standard grip mat, of course my torch paste, and just a simple paintbrush. We've got the heat gun, and most importantly, the blank. This is just a natural wood, which works best with the torch paste. Definitely avoid bamboo. But this is just natural wood. I found this from Aldi, and this is going to turn out so nice. So first things first, let's go ahead and jump in Cricut Design Space. We need to create our design and size it accordingly for the stencil, and then we can start the wood burning process. Here we are in the home screen of Cricut Design Space. We need to access the canvas to start designing. You can access the canvas two different ways. You've got your tab up here that says Canvas. You can click on that. Or you can go over to the right hand side and click on this tab here, New Project, and then click on Blank Canvas. So our design today is very simple. All we are doing is creating a letter. So we're going to click on the text box here. And once that populates, you can see that we've got a top toolbar now. And we also have font options, which include letter spacing, line spacing, curvature, and more. So what we want to make sure, since we are just creating a stencil and using adhesive vinyl, we need to make sure that the operation type is a basic cut, and it is. And the next thing that I want to do is choose the font. So I'm going to double click this text box, and I'm going to type a C because that is the letter that I want to wood burn. And now I'm going to go to the fonts, and right now it's under the Cricut. So these are all Cricut fonts. I've got a font downloaded that I downloaded for free from dafont.com. So I'm going to click on System, which will show all the fonts that I've downloaded. So the font that I'm looking for is Western. It has something with Western in it. Okay, so this is the font Euro Western. I'm going to click on that, and then the font will change in the canvas. And now I'm going to collapse this, and let's bring this up to the top. So the next thing we need to do is size it accordingly. The width of the charcuterie board is 6.5 inches wide. So I want to make sure that the seat is pretty centered within that. So I think 3.5 inches wide is a good size. So I'm going to go to the top here under the size, and I'm going to highlight this and type in 3.5 and press enter. Okay, so now I think it should just be a little bit taller, but I don't want to alter the width. So what I need to do is unlock this. So now I'm able to change the height, and the width will stay the same. So let's increase this a bit. Okay, so now it is 3.5 inches wide by 5 inches tall. I like that dimension, so I'm going to go ahead and lock that back. And now we are ready for the next step. So we've got the operation under Basic Cut. We've got our Joy Xtra machine selected. So now let's select Make It. I don't want to save this project. I am going to be using a mat today. I'm going to be placing the adhesive vinyl on the Cricut Joy Xtra standard grip mat. So I'm going to select on mat and confirm that. Now this screen here is mimicking your cutting mat. And what I want to do, because I'm creating a stencil, is I want to move this down a bit because I want a margin around the letter. Because what I'm going to be doing is wood burning this C itself. So what we're going to do is lay our vinyl down on the mat. The C is going to be cut out. And then I'm going to weed out the letter C. And then that's where our wood burning paste is going to be. So to protect the surrounding area, I want vinyl to be there. So you've got to move your design down so the machine isn't cutting on the vinyl up in this corner. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below and I can clarify any questions that you may have. So I think that that's a pretty good margin there on the left and the right side. Also paying attention to the inch marks here so we know where to lay our vinyl and also how large our vinyl piece needs to be. So this is in a good position. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And now our machine is going to connect via Bluetooth. So for the next step, we need to select our material. I've got it bookmarked. It's premium vinyl permanent glossy. I find that this cuts the Oracle 651 the best. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And now we need to make sure that the fine point blade is loaded in the clamp, and then it says load your mat into your machine. So let's go ahead and switch to the overhead camera and prep our mat for the cutting process. We are using Oracle 651 permanent adhesive vinyl. You can order it on Amazon. Michael also sells it. I have already got a piece cut down along with some transfer tape. So let's go ahead and remove this protective film from the mat. And I just place that over to the side so that I can put it back on the mat after we are done cutting, just to preserve our mat, because it is sticky and everything will stick to it. I cut this down already, and I need to pay attention to the inch marks here. So it's not quite at 6 inches, but it goes to over 7 inches here. So what I want to do is double check where our design is. So I'm going to click on this, and this is my laptop. I can just detach the screen. This is not a tablet. This is a laptop. Things are different on a tablet. Okay, so I clicked on the mat and it made it larger for me to see. And now I can see that the cut is going to be before the 5 inch mark, and we are a little past that. I think that that will still be enough margin to protect the wood surface, so I think that this is going to be a good position. I just wanted to make sure I had enough vinyl over in this area. Okay, so now it is ready for us to load it in the machine. So the first thing that it's going to do is make sure that the mat is aligned and that it's the correct length for the job. And once it's done registering the mat, it will prompt us to select start or go on our computer. I believe it says go. Yes, okay, so now it is ready for the cutting process. So I'm going to select go. And it's going to cut the C in the middle and leave all that extra space to protect our wood blank. It is done cutting, and I can press unload on my computer. And now we are done with the Cricut machine. To remove our vinyl piece here, the best practice is to turn your mat over and bend your mat instead of your material. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and put the protective film back on our mat to preserve our mat. So typically when you're weeding vinyl, you remove all the excess, all the outer, and then you keep the design. But for this, because we're creating a stencil, we are going to do what is called reverse weeding, where we actually remove the design itself and leave all the extra. So we've got the letter C here, and I'm just going to take my Cricut weeding tool and remove the letter C. And now this is our stencil, and this is trash. I'm going to bring in a magnet here to magnetize this down. And here we've got transfer tape, and it's the same process. We just need to apply the transfer tape over the vinyl to remove the vinyl from its backer. And I'm going to start down at the bottom here and move the magnet and then lay the rest down. Now it's a little short, but that's okay. It's covering all the important areas. So now I'm going to come in with a squeegee or scraper tool and really scrape this down to get that vinyl attached to that transfer tape. Just really burnish this down. And I also like to go ahead and burnish on both sides. We can remove the backer, and then we have the stencil. So before I remove that all the way, let's go ahead and move that aside and bring in our wooden blank. And it is a clean surface. If it has lots of debris on it, you can rub a little bit of alcohol, rubbing alcohol on it, just to clean the surface up a little bit, just to help this stick down and stay down. So now I want to make sure that this is centered within the board, but I do want to note that it does have this sway here, and then it's kind of angled at the bottom. So I might have to place this down and then hold it up just to make sure that it is actually centered and straight. And one other thing that I'm going to do before I really stick this down is bring in a measuring tape and measure how far it is from the outside. So where the design starts and then stops, just to make sure that it is even, and it is pretty even. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my scraper tool here and really get this burnish down on this wood surface. You really want the vinyl to stick the best that it can, because you don't want any of the torch paste to seep underneath the vinyl. That is the main issue that you'll have, is that torch paste wants to seep under that material, which is one of the reasons why I prefer vinyl over the stencil material. Using the stencil material in the past with the torch paste and the glass etching cream, I found that it was just seeping underneath the vinyl and then ruining the project, because this is permanent along with the glass etching cream. I do have a tutorial on that. I will link down below for you guys if you want to catch up on another really neat creative craft that you can do. Okay, so what I'm going to start doing, I scraped it down the best that I can. Now I need to remove this transfer tape. And because this is a wood surface, the vinyl's not really wanting to stick down. So I'm just going to have to work slow as I peel this back. And then we're going to have to do a little more burnishing just to make sure it's really stuck down. So what I want to do is go along the design here with my finger and really make sure that it is pressed down and there's no bubbles around that area. And then if I need to, I can bring in my weeding tool to lift certain areas up just to make sure that there's no bubbles around the design. Okay, I think it's pretty well stuck down around this cut line here. But just to ensure, I'm going to bring in a backer here. And I'm going to bring in my squeegee. And I'm using this to protect the vinyl. And I'm just going to really burnish this down just for an extra precaution to make sure nothing seeps underneath. And honestly, guys, if you're using torch paste or the glass etching cream, just double, triple check. It just takes a little more time to make sure that it's going to come out and it's not a ruined project. So this torch paste I found on Amazon. Be sure to check the description box for all the links. I will provide the links to the things that I can find. This is the original wood burning paste, and what we want to do is apply a thin layer of the paste to the stencil here, or to this opening. And then we will let it dry for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will remove the stencil and then apply the heat. So what I want to do is, let's go ahead and move this stuff aside. And if you need protective eyewear or gloves, definitely use what you feel that is necessary for you. I want to make sure that this is, I feel like that is not all the way stuck down. Okay, so I've got quite a bit on the paintbrush, and I'm just going to start up at the top and work my way down. Really trying to stay on the wood so I don't waste too much of the torch paste on the vinyl. You can scrape it up, the excess, and put it back in the container, but honestly it doesn't really want to come up because it's kind of sticky. So I'm just going to apply a thin layer by spreading all that excess around and trying to make sure that it's pretty even as well. But definitely not a deal breaker. Just make sure that you have this applied all over the wood surface. And this is a simple one because it's not very intricate. But if you choose to do more of an intricate one, you want to be attentive of that. I also want to note that intricacy can cause a problem because this is really sticky and kind of all over the place. when you start to remove your stencil for the wood burning process, you might spread some of the orange on the wood surface. So it was just something to be cautious about if you choose to have more of an intricate design, because this will start to rip when you're picking it up. Okay, so I'm removing the stencil, and then I'm going to let this sit for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will bring in the heat gun. While this is setting, I do want to note as well that I've tried this torch paste on bamboo and it really doesn't work. Once you start bringing in the heat, you want to consistently move around the surface so it doesn't create dark spots, and bamboo really creates dark spots really easily. So I recommend just natural plain wood. Stained wood works as well. I've done that and that works perfectly fine. Just natural wood or stained wood, but just avoid bamboo. And as for the adhesive vinyl, you don't necessarily have to use Oracle. You don't necessarily have to use a permanent. I just recommend adhesive vinyl over stencil material. So while this sets for a couple minutes, I'm gonna go wash this out in the sink with Dawn soap. Now it is time to bring in the heat gun. It has been a couple of minutes. This is a Genesis heat gun. It's got a low and a high setting. This thing is like 15 years old, maybe more than that. It works great. I will link it down below for you. I'm gonna put it on high. This is gonna take a few minutes. The more heat, the longer you apply heat, the darker it will get. Just remember to constantly move your heat gun. Don't get too close and watch out for dark spots. All right, so I zoomed in a little bit so you could kind of see the charred marks a little bit. I've been heating it up for maybe 1 minute and it will begin to bubble, and then you can see it start to char. That will continue to happen. That is normal. Just continue on moving the heat gun and applying heat. Okay, so I am done. I'm gonna let this cool down because I had the heat gun on it for probably almost 7 minutes to achieve this darkness. So I'm gonna let it cool down to normal temperature, and then I will bring in a cold washcloth and clean this off. Let me go ahead and zoom out for you guys. One thing that I do want to point out as well is that it's going to look different. Like certain areas are going to be darker than others depending on the wood grain. So each piece is kind of going to be unique, which is really nice. If you were to sell products like this, you could always put that in a disclaimer because of the wood grain. One other thing that I want to note is that the thickness of your blank definitely matters. If you're trying to do thin wooden coasters, you end up having to apply too much heat, and then the wooden blank will begin to warp and sometimes crack. So bear that in mind as well. You want a thick wooden blank so that enough heat can be applied to get the desired look you want, and then not mess with the integrity of the wood blank itself. It has completely cooled down to the touch. I just have a washcloth and I wet it down. I typically bring it to the sink at this part because it's going to be brown, but I'm going to show you this step. And you can see some of those charred marks kind of going away. And then you can see that some areas are darker than others. So what I'm doing right now is basically spreading that charredness into the grains of the wood. So what I want to do is take it to the sink, and I'm just going to use a scrub brush and scrub this off to make sure that it is clean, and then I will bring it back on screen. This is the final result. It is all cleaned off. This is still drying a bit, but you can see the variation of darkness there. And oh, I thought I messed up, but that is just a little knot in the wood. And with this, you know, once it starts to char and gets dark, you don't really know how dark it's going to be. So just add a little more heat and a little more time, because most of the time when you remove the charred marks, it's not as dark as you want it to be. So bear that in mind. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment and I will do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. Check the description box for the tools and supplies I used today, along with my Instagram channels. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next Cricut craft or card. Bye everyone.